Yeah, hi, ladies. I was so excited to have this talk today with you because there's been so much happening. I mean, first of all, Happy New Year to you. And it's good to get together like this.
Absolutely. Happy New Year to you both.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, I've been wondering if we could have a conversation about how how the whole New Year's resolutions and the whole, stuff needs to change in my life, starting with the weight and everything, how that sort of can use a little bit of wisdom from different angles. And I've been friends with Claudia for a while and appreciated her approach of the alternative medicine side. And I found that you, Aina, have a great wisdom to share as well on the whole background of how stuff works in the body. And I'd like to share my piece of how energetically all of that ties in together.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just quickly like to introduce myself. I don't even think if it matters so much. I've been a coach and a facilitator for a while, and I always like to look at stuff holistically and look at solutions rather than resolutions, and to look at how everything that we collect within our body is just information that's tied to our cells, that's tied to our memories and to our past. And I've been on the Isagenix journey for, bless you,
Thank
I've
you.
been on the Isagenix journey for half a year now, and I've noticed that so much stuff has come shifting, transforming, and I just like to talk to you about the background of all of that, because I've noticed it's not just weight that's shedding, it's really literally layers of memories that are going through my whole system, stuff that in the last 43 years of my life I wasn't able to get to. So I'm really excited to get a different perspective with you ladies on that.
Yeah. Well, I would love to share a little bit from my perspective, Sandra. I think I shared with you before, and Claudia, of course, knows I've been a clinical nutritionist. I practiced for many, many years. My husband and I owned a holistic health center. I'm a chiropractor, but nutrition was always really my love and my passion. And while I was in practice, I was specializing a lot in the area of stubborn weight loss. I worked a lot with cleansing and detox programs, always recognizing that there's really a need for that. Although innately we all have this amazing detoxification system already set up, we were never supposed to live in such a toxic world. So I always worked with cleansing and detox. And there's a really strong connection to the aspect of stubborn weight loss and the toxic load, because a lot of people don't understand this. And, when I say stubborn weight loss, I know a lot of people really connect with that because they have a hard time. So in my practice, it was either people who metabolically or physiologically had a really hard time, like some imbalance, or it was a lot of the self-sabotaging mechanism that would kick in. So people would gain weight and lose weight, gain weight and lose weight, couldn't get out of their own way. And so the link with the toxicity is that our body's response is that our fat cells enrobe the toxins as a protective mechanism. So even lean people that look lean on the outside will often, we're all toxic. We're all living on this planet. We're all inundated by toxins. And because that's often the underlying cause of why the fat is so stuck, it makes it more and more challenging to get lean and to really see the changes for people. So I was working a lot in that area. Also recognizing through all of these years that not only are we toxic, but more so now than ever, we're also quite deficient. Our food supply just is depleted. The minerals that were once in the soil aren't there. It's really hard to get what we need from our food supply, even if we eat clean, healthy, wholesome, organic food, which of course I highly suggest, but it's not enough. So the combination of being toxic, being deficient, is leading to us being overweight, tired, aging quicker, having these degenerative changes in a negative way. So in my practice, I was always looking for better ways to help my patients. And because I was working in those areas, I wanted more tools in my toolbox. I wanted to be able to help more people. But I think I shared this with you. I was also searching for myself. So at the time when I found Isagenix almost 15 years ago, I was just turning 40. And I struggled not only with my weight most of my life, but I struggled with my well-being. I always had a low energy, low emotional, mental energy for no real apparent reason. So when I found out about Isagenix, aside from being so skeptical, because gosh, we know there's so much out there that's garbage. There's so many things that are, not safe, all kinds of skewed research studies. And, you hear about the latest and the greatest, and you really, unfortunately, nowadays and for many years, it's hard to know who to trust and what's really legit and what's really worth putting our money into and our time into, and is it going to really make a difference? So very skeptically, I did my due diligence, and finally my husband and I decided to do our own clinical research study. It was a small group, like a little clinical trial. There were about a dozen of us that went on the program. And it was such a game changer. I still to this day can't believe that I experienced something like that in such a short amount of time after being in practice for 16 years. I had my own private label, so I had a supplement line. I worked with some really cool stuff, but I never ever experienced the changes, both what I saw in our little trial and in myself. And so this is, I think, really so key, because it's not about the weight loss, because this program is about cleansing and replenishing and rebalancing. So what it's doing, it's supporting that detox system while it's simultaneously replenishing the nutrients. It's giving our cells the nutrients that we need. And when we do that, our body is truly the miracle. So our body can rebalance. We can have vibrant health where we feel more alive, more energized. And as we're getting leaner and healthier, it's just a whole different kind of thing. But for me, it was that well-being that I had never experienced from a nutritional plan. And that was what was so different. It balanced me to the point where I totally stopped the self-sabotaging behavior. And now, almost 15 years later, I don't do that stuff anymore. It's just a whole different rebalancing effect in the body. So I've been a raving fan all these years. And, it's very interesting to be able to help people not only with their physical well-being, but it ties into so much more than that, as we all know.
I think it's so interesting that you say, you've started elaborating on stubborn weight loss and on all of your experience through your practice over all of those years before even you came to Isagenix and you had your own revelations in that field. But I find it really interesting. I've been thinking about the toxic status of our systems. Is it like, the chicken and the egg thing? Is it that we're toxic because we're under low nutrition, or, we don't get the nutrition that we need? Or is it, that the toxicity in our system makes everything sort of not really open up? Do you know what I mean? Because it just feels like, and I'm just observing the last half year of my Isagenix journey, it just feels like all of the cells were just closed and everything was locked in there and there was no way of getting to it. And I've had the whole weight changes and weight shifts in my life, extreme weight loss, extreme weight gain again. But I'm really realizing now that there's such a correlation between toxicity in my mind, so my mental state, and being able to release them in a holistic way.
Yeah, it's such a great question, and it is that vicious cycle, because yes, we have this detox system already set up innately, but we're not supposed to live in such a toxic world. And when we're not getting the right minerals to unlock those pathways so that it functions optimally and efficiently, then it just becomes this, vicious cycle where we're not getting the toxins out. It's causing all of these other repercussions. And it's no wonder why so many people have cancer and all these other dreadful diseases and autoimmune disorders, and why most people, even if they're not diagnosed with an actual disease or a condition, most people don't feel well. Most people their energy is so low, they're not sleeping well, they have a lot of anxiety and depression and aches and pains and all kinds of inflammatory situation going on in their body, affecting their physical and mental, emotional, and even spiritual well-being. It's just all tied in together.
Yeah. Yeah, and to then see that, after a long time of our life and experiences that we went through, that maybe the experiences that were the most traumatizing weren't really necessary, like it's not my normal state of being. I mean, we all just make do with so much less of what's really possible. That's been such a big eye-opener for me, also spiritually, always aiming for, releasing stuff that's not mine and that doesn't serve me anymore. I'm really realizing, we're so good at mediating, of just, there's always people that do far less well than I'm doing. So, there's always this connection. I could be so grateful, but not really feeling the highest well-being that's that I'm capable of. So,
yeah. And I think, when you're putting the right nutrients in, and we've talked about this, how our products have an energy that's really connecting with our own vital energy, that's really having an influence. Because, when we first looked at this years ago, I looked at the ingredients, and the ingredients are great, but it didn't, my husband always jokes, like, he makes up a funny word, like there was no magical thing in there that was creating, you couldn't look at it and go oh, no wonder why I feel this amazing. But it was just the whole synergistic effect of what it did. And it's like layers. It's like all different layers that it's having a positive impact on. So it's really fascinating. It's so much more than, I want to lose some pounds for the new year and I want to improve my energy. It's just a whole transformation in our beingness.
Yeah, and I really appreciate the background that you've just brought to the table and to this conversation, because you've worked in that business for such a long time, and yes, you can make it work, right? But it's always so many more sides to the coin or to the cake than just the one approach that we're starting off with. And then if you can allow that to expand continuously, you see the full picture and you go, oh, wow, this has so many more facets than I could see in the beginning. For the longest time, my biggest frustration was having a body, seeing the energetic connections and the spiritual side of things, and being in that realm and really being fulfilled in meditation. But when it came down to being in the body and being in life, everything was just dense and just heavy, and it just didn't feel free. So, I did what most spiritual people do. I just escaped through that, through that experience of feeling high on meditation. And that worked for a couple of years, but ultimately, my biggest commitment to myself was, I need to make it work here in life, because otherwise what's the point in having a body, right? I can just go back into the other realm where everything is rainbows and sparkles. But I was so curious also to just see what happens if I fully dive into this life. And that is confronting parts of myself that I felt uncomfortable with. And that's mainly, for me personally, it was the body, because it was always neglected. It was always like, I've got this thing, it's sort of not comfortable. I don't feel good in it, but at least I've got the other realm that I can dive into. And bringing those pieces together for me was then such a big revelation of, oh wow, that's what life is. It's not the 9-to-5 job. It's not running after yourself. It's not the hamster wheel and making great money in the world and having a good car and a nice house. It's about feeling good within yourself, and that has so many layers, right? And Claudia, I think, you know, our connection came at the right time, because I had been making the commitment to myself to really look at the darkest of my dark sides, which was, you know, confronting my body and my weight and the stuff that hadn't been working for me. And I just loved what you opened up for me.
Well, thank you you both. I'm just amazed by always listening to other women or people and share their experience of our journeys. And can you imagine, I know Ina since I think 12 years now, and it took me quite a while to get her message. And you and I, Sandra, we actually met each other on social media, which is wonderful. So my name is Claudia. I'm the German American here. I'm the in-between you two. Moving to the US in the beginning of 2001 was quite a challenge for me, because already holistically orientated, I was not aware anymore actually what I was putting in my body. I was not familiar with any kind of products here in the US, and there are less restrictions, different ingredients and all that. So, and being I always struggled with my weight throughout the years. I was in my mid-40s when we moved here, and menopause just had started, and did my spiritual journey. So I basically, for over 10 years, was waiting for the divine intervention, that everything just would go away. And well, it didn't. It didn't for 10 years. And Ina and I actually were neighbors, just a couple of blocks apart. And Ina was the one who introduced me to a wonderful group of women who were entrepreneurs. I wrote my diploma in homeopathy here in the US. I made my passion to my profession, so I was pretty free to do what I wanted to. And Ina opened up a great community for me, and I always heard when she introduced her business, and it didn't register. I could have made my journey for the last 10 years pretty much easier, I think, but you know, it proves when we're not ready on some level, even the mental level, it doesn't convert. So, and 2 years ago, finally, my husband was the one. He always was overweight, even when we met back in Germany, and so his health took a dive down, and he was the one who said, all this organic, holistic eating that we're doing, that's what he called it, it's not working. It's not working for me. My blood pressure is up, and the doctor is concerned. So we had these great neighbors. We just had moved to another area. And so why don't we invite Ina and Glenn, because they're knowledgeable and they have some kind of system. So we invited Ina and Glenn, and they happily came to see us. And Ina introduced Jörg to this wonderful program, and to my surprise, Jörg immediately said, I'm doing this. I mean, we trust Ina and Glenn. We knew our kids know each other, and you know, all the neighbor things that we did together, but we didn't know anything about the meal replacement system. So I'm the one who turns every pack around, reads the labels, and that was the first thing I was impressed with, to read all this. And being a homeopath, I'm very aware, and an empath, what is in my household, what works for us. And so I was suspicious anyway, if this would work for Jörg, because Jörg likes to eat and likes to eat good, which is wonderful. And so long story short, Jörg went on this program, and I just was in wonder and observed how this man transformed on every level in front of me, from the weight to his energy to his spirit. I just, cannot begin to tell you how much everything, my life changed because he changed his. So long story short, I was intrigued, and I asked Ina if I could try this program too. Not so much on weight loss for me at that point, but there are other great aspects that were intriguing to me. The energy, there's a way of healthy aging. I mean, at one point in your life, you're thinking, okay, how can I support my body? And we are still chemical. And there is still a physical part to us. It's not only the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual body. All of a sudden, I had the awareness, I need to take care of all of these bodies. And there are different ways to do that. And sure, one responds when you work with the other, but we still need to eat. We still need to look at the, like Ina said, the toxicity and everything she said. So all of a sudden it reached me, and so I started the program, and well, 2 years later I'm still a raving fan. I've never felt so awake on all levels than I am now. It's like I was my worst in my 20s, then 3 pregnancies, off and on. I feel my best ever. So there is definitely something to the science of this system and program.
And I think what all of us share is the love for seeing something work, right? Because, I know, like you said in your opening words, it's like there's so much stuff out there, not just on the health side and wellness side, spiritually, and everything. It's just pure overload and overwhelmment, right? And it was always for me that I wanted to surround myself with people that were walking that talk, that were relatable, that were integer and sovereign, and all of the circles that I left ultimately, the reason was always that I saw there was a discrepancy between what was taught and what was lived, right? And I could always, being an empath, like you said, Claudia, you just feel everything, and we're all empaths, otherwise we wouldn't sit together and talk about this, right? You just feel everything, and if there's something that doesn't quite fit and click, and you just go, there's something, I don't even need to know what it is, but I'll just keep moving on and doing something else because it just doesn't quite stick. And then to see and come across other people is so satisfying, where you see, that, when I met Claudia, I was like, she's glowing. There's a kind of satisfaction in her and a kind of contentness that she just shares with her whole beingness. And I think coming to the point where you talk about, how long have you been with Isagenix now, Ina?
Almost 15 years.
Wow. I mean, you wouldn't stick around that long if it didn't if it wasn't a gift that kept on giving, right?
100%. Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And and I know that in the beginning we all go into the choice of changing something in our life that makes us extremely unhappy. Like for me, the body thing, right? It became so it came to such a level of unhappiness within my own skin that I felt I needed to change something, but I never expected this to be so layered and so all-encompassing, right? So I'd love to talk about, what are the shifts and changes that you've seen compared to your old nutritional practice, the experiences with clients.
Yeah, so, I did a lot of really cool things in practice prior to Isagenix, and I got good results, but it wasn't the same. And sometimes I feel like it's on a more deeper, more holistic level that the changes happen for people when they use Isagenix versus anything else that I ever used before in practice. So I would say that, so prior to Isagenix, I was in practice for 16 years, and then I'm not in practice currently, but I've been coaching people with this system. I was also the product expert for 8 years, the company's product expert. So I was doing live calls and trainings and things like that. So I can tell you that this is the most sustainable system. Not everyone sticks because, you know what, that's just the way it is. But the majority of people, they feel such a difference. And some people aren't as in tune like the two of you are. So, but it's like a sustainable shift in lifestyle, habits, choices, food choices. So in that regard, it's different than going on a program, going off a program. It prevents.
Again, it's a choice, right? And but you have to make a choice for yourself how deep you want to dive into it. And then there's people that might just want to lose some weight and then move on. How deep do you want to go?
Right. And for me, and I know for Claudia and for you as well, even though you're fairly new to this journey, I can't imagine my life without using these products on a regular basis. Why? Because I want to slow down the aging process. It's inevitable. We all grow old, but we certainly don't want to feel old. We don't want to look old. And if this is a tool that's convenient and it just continues, like you said, to its layers, and you just keep feeling better, being around this culture, the people that have been using products for all these years, we go to the events, the conventions, and we see them, and people just continue to look better and better. And in this world, that's odd, right? Because you see people you haven't seen in a while, you're like, oh my gosh, I hope they're okay. I mean, so many people are they're stressed out, they're deficient, they're toxic. It's tough now to really stay on top of our health game. But this is a very easy way to do that, and it's just very sustainable.
And it comes down to the choices. And I'm now 43. I've got 2 kids, and I feel I have a choice now on how I want to transition into the next phase of my life and what phase that should be for me. And I want it to be a phase of freedom and of experience and of exploration and adventure. It's not necessarily, we're slowing down, we're getting quieter. For me, it's about, okay, my kids are now in that age that I can just, they're doing their own thing, and I can just start living an even more sovereign life for myself and make my choices. And then you look at friends and family that are, of course, aging with you, and you get not to compare in a judgmental way, but you just observe and you go, okay, so knowing that person, knowing where the choice came from to live the way that they live their life, and then to say, okay, while I honor that choice, because everybody can just do whatever they can do, right? I still see for myself what choices I want to make. And looking at my mother, for example, that's not a choice that I want to make, to be so restricted and limited by constant overweight, by constant narrow perspective of choices. So that's really something that I can connect to when Claudia said, making the choice to age well. Absolutely.
Exactly. I think it's the whole package that this company brings to the table. The purity of the ingredients, the way how they distribute. It's a friendship model. So I rather trust a friend who has already experience with a product than go into a big supermarket and just wandering around and guessing, okay, will that work for me? And plus, we have the great honor to have Ina as a background, who has really done her research and has the professional background. And so when we open ourselves up to other possibilities, they appear. When I count in motherhood, I think I'm on my 7th career at the moment, and I'm 64 in 2 weeks. And I don't feel like I want to stop soon doing something, but it has to be joyful. And like Ina and I like to say, it doesn't have to give us a kink in the hose. So then it's all good. So I thought I'd just throw that in. That is the whole package that is presented to us. Plus, we don't have to restrict ourselves from food. We still have all the foods that we love, right, Ina? We have our occasional wine. When Jörg goes out, he has his fries and his burger, and it's all an inclusive program that supports food, and it's your choice which kind of foods you keep and incorporate in your daily life.
And I think it breaks what it did for me. Was only recently I discovered that the patterns were broken. So the pattern of learned behavior, how to enjoy food, like, of course everybody likes to eat well, but that is a different experience for each and every one of us. And for me, I loved indulging in sweets and in being able to have pizza and then a nice wine with it and a beer, and while that's still part of my meal every now and then, now I really feel the pattern is gone.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's a free choice now. And having a pizza, which is absolutely fine, I don't have a bad feeling about it, but it's actually not that satisfying. And that's what's really interesting. And I go, oh, isn't that curious? It used to be like almost the stubbornness of, I'm gonna have a pizza now and it's gonna bloody taste good. And ultimately feeling bad about it. But now the bad conscience is gone, but it's not even enjoyable, and maybe 1 or 2 pieces, but then to say, no, I'm done, I'm good, I don't need to eat up, and I don't need to have a dessert after this. So it's become a free choice, and that's new for me. I've never had that in my life.
The cravings go away.
Yeah, because
you are satisfied with the other part of the nutrition, and like you said, it's a free choice now.
Yes. Yeah. So I wonder, like, as a kind of a closing statement, how do you, apart from using the products for yourself, what is ultimately the healthy lifestyle for you?
So I love the 80-20 rule. Where 80% of the time I make the right choices. And I recommend, if people can follow that 80-20 rule, because there's so many things, so many foods. I love my wine. I love going out to dinner. My husband and I are foodies. We consider ourselves foodies. It's one of the pleasures that we really enjoy and indulge in. But it's all about choices. So if 80% of the time you're making good, healthy choices, cool. So that's kind of how I fit it in food-wise. I continue to go and work out because exercise is so important. I hydrate my body well on a regular basis. We definitely recommend that. Fresh air, sunshine, and all of the other mental, emotional, spiritual practices that we choose. But from that perspective, it's more of a cleansing lifestyle. I cleanse when I feel I need to, change of season, I'll do some cleansing. But during the rest of the time, I'm incorporating the products to give me a foundation of really good, solid nutrition, making healthy choices most of the time. Weekends, maybe a little less disciplined than during the week, but I think we have to have some balance there. in the favor of what's healthy for us.
Yeah, thank you. Claudia, I know that you surround yourself with a lot of pets in your life. So probably walking the dogs is a way of a healthy lifestyle for you. How does that look in your everyday life?
Actually, that's part of Jörg's daily routine to walk the dogs in the morning. For me, I almost every day I have some kind of practice of workout. If it's a hot workout with a personal trainer, I gifted myself with a personal trainer because I need to be pushed to really do something and being guided. And yoga belongs to my healthy lifestyle. So once a day, I wouldn't, not once a day, 3 to 4 times a week, I involve myself into some kind of a physical practice. That is definitely a no compromise rule for me. And otherwise, if it's not joyful, it doesn't belong into my life. Anything, not anything.
That's a beautiful last quote, right?
Right.
If it doesn't include
Isagenix. Definitely Isagenix. Cannot miss that anymore. And meeting people like you through that.
Yeah, that's and again, it's about attracting the people that fit into the choice that you made for yourself, right? The choice that you make for your life. I'm very grateful to have had this conversation with you, ladies.
Likewise, yeah.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to find out a little bit more, because we said we just share this freely with anybody that's interested in 3 different perspectives from 3 different lifestyles coming together and agreeing on this one thing. If anybody wants to find out more, I'm sure we're all reachable over Facebook. Just reach out and just, I think it's using the quick way of connecting nowadays is just always the great thing, and all of us are happy to answer any questions that there may be.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much.
And happily, anytime.
Yes, thank you.